But we'll take that and move on to talking about the UCLA defense. Has not been a positive for the past couple of years. There's definitely been some holes on that side of the ball, even though there were some talented players like Darnay Holmes, or even Jalen Phillips a few years back, who have been on the roster. But UCLA had the worst pass defense in its history last season, and it was worse in the Pac-12, worst Pac-12 pass defense in 5-6 years. It hasn't been pretty. Jack, are there any different expectancies here, and what could possibly take them over the hump and turn them into at least a mediocre defense?
I mean, it's going to be tough for them. Losing Chris Barnes, losing some of the Darnay Holmes, losing some of those guys on your defense is going to be tough to replace. And with the shortened training camp, with the shortened season, they shouldn't be expected to come out of the gates right away. But on the other hand, the offenses that they are facing, while some of them are supposed to be good, USC is supposed to be good, Arizona State, Arizona, Oregon especially might be a tough challenge. They will have to come out strong, especially week 1 against Colorado with new quarterback. Week 2 against Utah on a Friday at home. You cannot give up big points against those teams. You can't rely on DTR in the offense. While good and while they have the ability to put up huge points, you can't rely on them to just to win every game like a Washington State game. Giving up 63 points ever is a bad thing. You shouldn't be giving up 63 points. We saw against Oregon State last year, giving up plus 30 points. If UCLA is able to keep it below 30 points a game, and I don't know, they seem like they gave up 1 million passing yards every single time, even though they had guys in the secondary that were talented. It just seemed like something wasn't clicking with them. It seemed like sometimes the rotations were off. Sometimes their coverage plans were messed up. If they can hold some of these offenses, especially ones that are less experienced, to under 250 passing yards a game, even under 200, which is a tall order, but if they can hold them to that, UCLA should be coming out on top. Can they do it? Yes, I think they can. I think that this group, with the lack of preparation from other teams, should be able to take a big step forward.
Yeah, and you lose Darnay Holmes. That's tough, but he's really the only major contributor who's out of that secondary. You still have Quentin Lake. You have Rashad Williams, who I think is going to be a really good piece as maybe not a lockdown corner, but he's someone who I think can take a big step as a number 1 corner in the Pac-12. And I mean, just the new guys you add. You have Jake Newman, you have Jonathan Vaughns, who's a linebacker and safety. You have Carl Jones, who can play linebacker and safety. Obi Ebo, coming from Stanford, is a grad transfer. So you have new names, new faces. You have youth, you have experience. I think it's an interesting blend, but it really, I think, comes down to, and I don't want to oversimplify things, the defensive line. A part of shutting down the pass is pass rush, and if you can't get to the quarterback, then you can't expect your secondary to cover guys for 10 full seconds. So you have an experienced defensive line. Osi has got better every year he's played at UCLA. He's going for NFL draft stock this year. He's really trying to get his first winning season, and I think he's really going to be key in not only stuffing the run like he has in the past, but he has to take that next step in getting to the quarterback. 3.5 sacks is good, but he's gonna have to take that next step.
Right, and you see some of the talented quarterbacks they have in the Pac-12 South. You've got Jaden Daniels, you've got Keaton Slovis, you've got Bentley now transfers from South Carolina to Utah. You're not. Some of these guys are. Well, Daniels and Slovis are just going to be entering their second years. Bentley's a transfer. They're not. They shouldn't be at the level where UCLA shouldn't be able to handle them. And it does start at the defensive line. You've got to win the battle in the trenches. If you don't put pressure on these guys, they have talented receivers and they've got talented running backs that can get open and they can catch the ball and they can gain a lot of yards. And we've seen that at UCLA the past few years. We've seen them give up big chunks of yards. They've allowed these dynamic plays. They beat USC 2 years ago and they were able to hold that team to a rough day. But last season, man, USC just worked their way with the UCLA team. The defense did nothing to stop them. So they're going to have to take a big step up on the defensive line. But I'm looking at the linebackers too. You know, losing Chris Barnes, he wasn't drafted, but signed as a free agent, and now he's doing super well in the NFL. And UCLA has always had, especially in the last 10 years, this history of really good linebackers. You know, Barr, Jack, Kendricks. It's up to them to really step up, take a defensive leadership on this team, and show that UCLA is back. Because while I've said the offense is great, the offense could do some super amazing every single week if they're consistent, as we've seen in like the Washington State game last year. It's up to the defense to hold them and give DTR some breathing room.